Chapter 3. The Witch's Mark. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Decima moved through the house like a ghost in her own life, tidying things that didn't need tidying, folding laundry that could have waited, sweeping a floor she hadn't walked across. She told herself it was just to stay busy, but her mind never truly left the woods. The image of the archway stayed behind her eyes, the shimmer of it, the hum it left in her bones, the way the air had changed when she touched it, like stepping through an invisible veil. And Daniel, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Not just the dream or the clearing or the garden, but the sense that he was woven into whatever this was. The pull she felt toward the forest was the same pull she felt when she saw him, like gravity bending around something unseen. That evening, she curled up on the window seat with a cappuccino, both hands wrapped around the warm mug. Outside, dusk blurred the edges of the world. The sky turned the color of ash and lilac. A single star flickered to life. Her thoughts were a spiral. Something had changed. She felt it in her skin now, like static in the blood. The woods were part of it. The magic she'd touched. The way her pendant had warmed. It wasn't random. It wasn't isolated. It was her. A car engine broke the quiet. She leaned slightly, heart ticking faster without her permission. The white car pulled up slowly to the curb across the road. Daniel stepped out and closed the door with a soft click. He didn't look toward her house. Not at first. He stood in the quiet, one hand tucked into his jacket pocket, the other brushing back his wind-blown hair. Then, as if pulled by some invisible string, he turned. Their eyes met across the road. Decima didn't move. Couldn't. The distance between them vanished in an instant. It didn't matter that they were meters apart. His gaze pinned her in place. Not harsh, not demanding, but seeing. Like he recognized something inside her. Like he felt what she had felt. The shift. The stirring. Her breath caught. She didn't know what to do with the moment. So she stood there, clutching her cooling coffee, frozen by something deeper than fear. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. Just stood there a moment longer, watching her, before turning and disappearing into his house. Decima remained at the window, the mug forgotten in her hands, her thoughts louder than ever. The forest hadn't just awakened something old. It had awakened something between them, and neither of them knew how to name it yet. The following morning, the dream still lingered. Not its details. Those had blurred like ink in water, but its weight. The way it had made her feel. The warmth of Daniel's eyes. The way her body had glowed in the half-light of some other world. It didn't feel like something imagined. It felt remembered. She woke early and sat up slowly, blinking against the watery light slipping through the curtains. Her hand instinctively reached for the pendant at her throat. It was cool now. Still. As if whatever lived inside, it had gone quiet for the time being. But she knew better than to trust appearances. Nothing was truly still. She showered, dressed, and made coffee, going through the motions of her morning like someone pretending to be ordinary. But everything inside her felt pulled in a different direction. Outward, toward the woods. She told herself not to go, that she needed space, clarity, that it wouldn't help to wander. Through the trees again, hoping to feel something she couldn't explain. But by the time her mug was empty, her boots were on. The pull had already won. The path greeted her like it had been waiting. As she entered the woods, the air changed almost immediately. It was softer today, less charged than the day before, but still alive. The kind of stillness that came after something sacred had passed through and left its breath behind. She walked slowly, eyes scanning the trees, as if expecting something to shift again. To reappear, to call her. But nothing moved. Not visibly, and yet she could feel it. Like a ripple in the threads of the world, a current pulling her somewhere she hadn't yet named. She followed the curve of the path deeper, her steps light, instinctual. Every so often she paused, letting her fingertips brush against the bark of a tree or the edge of a fern. The textures grounded her, reminded her she was still real, still part of this world, even as it grew stranger around her. When she reached the clearing, she stopped at the edge. Her breath caught, just as it had the first time. But it was still gone. No archway, no shimmer, just a patch of moss and memory. She moved forward, slow and deliberate, eyes scanning the ground. It looked the same as yesterday. But something tugged at her again, not toward the center, but toward the trees to the left, a place she hadn't thought to look before. She crouched. There, half hidden beneath a drape of ivy and leaf litter, was a mark. Not carved, Not painted, just grown. The moss in that spot had shifted somehow, a faint spiral etched in the pattern of its growth. Perfect. Delicate. Too exact to be natural. The shape pulsed faintly in the filtered light, like the woods had breathed, a symbol into being. Her breath trembled. She reached out and hovered her hand above it. Warm, not hot, but undeniably warm, as if the earth itself held the memory of something living, something watching. She didn't touch it. Not yet. The last time she had, her world had changed. This time she waited and listened. No voice came, no whisper, but her own heartbeat was louder than before. And her pendant? It had grown warm again. She stayed kneeling for a long time. The spiral in the moss seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Slow, steady, almost like breathing. It wasn't glowing exactly, but there was something about the way the light fell there, a soft shimmer, subtle, like a secret that didn't want to be found but had decided to let her see it anyway. It was familiar in a way she couldn't explain, like a shape from a forgotten dream, or something she'd seen in the corner of her eye 100 times before but never really noticed. She moved to sit beside it, not touching, just watching. And the longer she stared, the more she felt the forest breathing around her. The trees creaked softly. A wind stirred the leaves overhead. A bird called once, sharp and distant, then quiet again. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, and it was responding to her. She could feel it now. Not just the mark on the ground, but something shifting in the air itself. Something subtle. As if the woods were changing shape around her without moving at all. A leaf drifted down through the light, spinning slowly as it fell. It landed in front of her, perfectly still. Decima reached for it without thinking. The moment her fingertips brushed the leaf's surface, the spiral in the moss flickered. Not light, not color, just vibration. A shimmer in the back of her skull. She gasped, hand flying back. The leaf was ordinary, but the mark no longer was. It had felt her. And something deep in the forest felt her too. Decima stood slowly, brushing her hands off on the sides of her coat. Though they weren't dirty. Her skin tingled, not like pins and needles, but like her body had briefly been tuned to something else, some deeper frequency she couldn't quite access anymore, though it lingered at the edges of her awareness. She took a few careful steps backward, her eyes still on the spiral. There was no doubt now. This wasn't something she had found. This was something that had found her. She felt it like a thread, pulling tight in her chest, the same pull that had led her to the archway, the same pull that had drawn her back here, and the same pull that lived in her when she thought of him, Daniel. His name stirred something just beneath her ribs, a quiet ache, a flicker of heat. She thought again of his eyes, the way they had held hers across the road, unblinking. That wasn't chance. That wasn't coincidence. He knew something, even if he didn't understand it yet. And she didn't have the language for what was changing inside her, only the sensation, the subtle stretching of something beneath her skin, the way her senses had sharpened without her consent. She could hear the crows flying overhead before she saw them. She could feel the shift in air pressure when they circled, and as she stood beneath the branches, she noticed, or for the first time, that her shadow no longer quite matched her shape. It was longer, thinner, like it had grown wings. She didn't run, even when her pulse surged in the edges of her. Vision narrowed slightly with the weight of what she'd just seen. She didn't run. Running would have meant fear, and somehow that didn't feel right. Whatever was happening, it wasn't chasing her. It was claiming her. She turned slowly from the clearing, the spiral still pulsing gently behind her like a heartbeat left in the ground. The forest didn't resist her retreat. It let her go, but it watched her leave. She could feel it in the bend of the branches, in the shifting shadows, in the strange hush that followed her steps. The path that led back toward her garden had changed again, subtly. A new route crossing where it hadn't before, ivy blooming in thick clusters along a tree that had once been bare. It was like the forest was reshaping itself to remember her, to hold her. She emerged from the trees just as the light began to fade. Dusk melted across the sky in streaks of violet and bruised gold. The town was quiet, still, unaware. Her house stood unchanged, the same as it had that morning. But she didn't step inside right away. She paused at the garden gate, turning her face to the woods once more. Behind her something shifted. Not loudly, just enough for her to feel it, like the brushing of a thought at the base of her skull. A whisper she almost understood. She glanced down at her arm. A line of faint gold traced the vein beneath her skin, flickering once, then fading. Gone, but not forgotten. Not anymore.